ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Opposition New Patriotic Party in Ghana to elect 2028 flag bearer on January 31.
And National Council today also made the decision that the date for our presidential primaries is set for January 31st, 2026.
Human rights organization calls for dialogue to end ongoing strike in Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria's Defense Chief Community Self-Protection Initiative to end Benue State crisis faces criticism.
Irrespective of how possibly well-intentioned, it risks alienating certain groups.
And Manu River Union member countries converge on Monrovia over border and maritime security. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Ghana, where the opposition New Patriotic Party, NPP, has officially scheduled its presidential primaries for Saturday, 31st January 2026. The decision was taken at a crucial meeting of the party's National Executive Committee held on Tuesday. This announcement by the party's General Secretary, Justin Frimpong Kodwa, set the stage for a decisive contest to elect the party's flag bearer for the 2028 general elections. With growing anticipation within the party's rank and file, the primary is expected to attract significant interest from both long-standing members and newcomers seeking to lead the NPP into the next electoral cycle. Party officials have indicated that nomination guidelines, timelines for campaign activities, and a code of conduct for aspirants will be released in the coming weeks. The NEC has assured party members of a transparent and credible process that opposes the democratic values of the NPP.
In light of the spirit and letter of Article 13 of the NPP Constitution, that power is clothed with National Council to make that decision. And National Council today also made the decision that the date for our presidential primaries is set for January 31st, 2026. A committee, or what we refer to as a planning committee, has been put in place by National Council to prepare and also implement directive that has been given to them for us to have a successful delegate conference to amend our constitution, the provision that has to be amended. A chairman for the committee is Honorable Joseph Osei Owusu, former Member of Parliament for Bekwai.
New Patriotic Party General Secretary Justin Frimpong Kodwa speaking there. Meanwhile, in neighboring Togo, traditional chiefs are being called upon to contribute to the peaceful management of the 17th July electoral process. The Minister of Territorial Administration, Decentralization and Customary Chieftain Hodolbalo Awate began a national tour in the Savannah region on June 16 to engage with traditional chieftains to promote effective electoral management and a peaceful electoral process. Francis Boniface has the rest of the story.
On July 17, 2025, the Togolese people will go to the polls for municipal elections. This is a unique moment already marked by various tensions, according to Minister Hodolbalo Awate.
Election periods are often times when passion takes precedence over reason. They are also times of tension, intoxication, agitation, and various forms and manipulation, especially of young people. During these sensitive times, what role should the traditional chief play in communities as a guarantor of peace, security, and social cohesion? The traditional chiefs assist independent local electoral commissions to varying degrees. This is why the chiefs must demonstrate neutrality and dignity even though he is a voter.
While traditional leaders have their role to play in the community as guarantors of peace, security, and social cohesion, Gabin Ajao, a lawyer and political analyst, questions the effectiveness of this engagement.
Today, people have truly lost interest in elections. I don't know if this story will allow people to trust the ballot box again and participate massively in these elections, and we will have to truly motivate these people. Perhaps traditional leaders can play this motivating role to encourage people to go to the polls. Today, we have to be convinced that a credible election is achievable.
The tour will extend until Friday, June 20, 2025 through the country's 5 regional capitals, including Dakar, Kara, Seconde, Atakpame, and Chevier. As announced by the Electoral Commission, campaigns for the municipal election begin Tuesday, July 1, 2025 for a period of 2 weeks.
That was a report by WDR Silver Wadr in Lomé and presented by Francis Boniface. Let's head now to Guinea-Bissau, where the strike by education, health and justice unions continues this Wednesday. The strike began last week and has been extended. Doctors at the Bissau main hospital on the front lines of this movement are protesting 17 months of salary arrears. The Guinea-Bissau Human Rights League deplores a strike that is paralyzing the country and depriving many citizens of access to basic services. Boubacar Touré, president of the organization, is urging dialogues between the government and union leaders to resolve the labor crisis.
For several months, the key social actors of health, education and justice have been on strike in a state of complete paralysis. This is putting the lives of many citizens at risk, especially women and children. That's why we called on the government last week to establish social dialogue mechanisms with workers' representative organizations to find a lasting solution to end this ongoing strike in these sectors. But to date, there is no solution. The situation is worsening with radicalization of the unions. We believe that the solution the government has just adopted, that is sending military officers to take over services at the main hospital, does not solve the problem. That's why we believe that there is a need for clear, objective and transparent dialogue with the health sector to find a lasting solution to end the strike, which has affected the population.
Boubacar Touré is the president of the Guinea-Bissau Human Rights League.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
In Nigeria, the Chief of Defense Staff has recommended a community-based security strategy to resolving the Benue State crisis. General Christopher Musa, who was in the state on Tuesday in the wake of recent attacks, proposed the initiative at the stakeholders' engagement in Makurdi, the Benue State capital. The Army Chief suggests training trusted local youth as vigilantes under the supervision of the military. However, not everyone agrees with the proposal. Let's join WDR's Yechenu Sasitu in Abuja for more.
From my own view, what I have observed, 3 basic things. 1, issue of land. Secondly, the issue of the movement of animals. Because of that, again, we have issues of rustling of animals.
That's the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, during his engagement with stakeholders in Makurdi, the Benue State capital. While highlighting the root factors in the ongoing crisis, General Musa says empowering carefully selected youths to safeguard their communities will strengthen local defense systems and create quicker response mechanisms against threats. His suggestion during the strategic meeting has been described as a hasty and potentially problematic proposal. Ata Jesse Ata is a security and intelligence specialist.
Irrespective of how possibly well-intentioned, it risks alienating certain groups, considering the ethno-religious and identity-based dimension of the current security dynamics across the various groups in question.
Ata further advised that the military should shift from reactive deployment to proactive strategies.
There is need for more robust early warning and early response system, more initiatives, more localized initiatives to really support people to identify some of the key triggers of violence before they turn into reprisals.
The growing death toll has sparked national outrage and drawn global attention. Pope Leo XIV condemned what he called a terrible massacre, while CSOs are advocating solutions to the crisis. President Bola Tinubu is expected in Benue later today. Much of the outcome of his first ever visit to the state since the carnage peaked this year is awaited. For WADR, Yechinusa Setu in Abuja.
Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is expected to arrive in the north-central state of Benue any moment from now on an assessment tour following recent and devastating attacks on farming communities by armed herders which have displaced thousands. Security experts have sharply criticized the federal response as too slow, warning that stronger action is urgently needed to restore stability. The death toll from an attack by gunmen over the weekend in the state has climbed to 150 as the villagers were still digging through burned homes, counting their dead and looking for dozens of people still missing. Recall late Friday night, a Ceylan storm in the state's Yelewata community, opening fire on villagers who were asleep and setting their homes ablaze. Survivors and the local farmers said many of those killed were sheltering in the local market after fleeing violence in other parts of the state. The prolonged conflict has become deadly in recent years, with authorities and analysts warning that more herdsmen are taking up arms. In neighboring Benin, unknown gunmen launched an attack targeting the Sonsoro police station located in the commune of Kandi in the northern region. The attack, which occurred around 11 p.m. on Monday, was confirmed by local sources. Northern Benin is experiencing a rise in armed attacks, and the Beninese authorities are keeping a close eye on the situation. Christopher Teacher completes the story.
The attackers, whose exact number remains unknown, targeted the Sonsoro police station, causing significant material damage. Several motorcycles belonging to the officers on duty were set on fire, according to eyewitness accounts. Alerted, local authorities quickly confirmed the attack and reassured the population that calm had returned to the area a few hours later. No deaths have either been reported or recorded at the stage, although investigations are still ongoing. A search operation was immediately launched in the area with the assistance of defense and security forces to find the perpetrators of this violent incursion. Sonsoro is a town and district in the Alibori department in northeastern Benin. It is an administrative division under the commune of Kandi, approximately 20 kilometers southwest of the commune's capital. Until the findings from the investigations are published, no one can say if terrorists or local bandits are behind this attack. However, Benue, which borders Burkina Faso and Niger at two ends, have since January suffered multiple attacks. Scores of soldiers and civilians were killed in many of these violence.
That was a report filed in by our Cotonou correspondent Aziz Adam Sule and voiced by Christopher Aticho. Now, Guinean Transitional President General Mamadi Doumbouya arrived in Abidjan on Tuesday for a 48-hour working and friendship visit. He was received at the presidential palace by his Ivorian counterpart, President Alassane Ouattara. At the heart of their discussions was the strengthening of economic cooperation between the two neighboring countries. As Sankle Janko reports, regional peace and security were also discussed.
General Doumbouya's visit, the first to Abidjan since his accession to power, is of particular importance. It is associated with several objectives, as outlined by President Alassane Ouattara at the end of their meeting.
We have decided to further strengthen our economic cooperation, particularly in the fields of mining, energy and transportation, and to accelerate work to demarcate the Ivorian-Guinean border.
He hopes to see Guinea regain its former prestige and resolutely pursue its path toward economic development. Furthermore, the two heads of state addressed major issues of concern to the sub-region, particularly the security, political and humanitarian situation in the Sahel.
We have decided to continue providing assistance to enable the countries of the Sahel to meet their humanitarian and security needs, because we are all concerned by this difficult situation.
In conclusion, the Ivorian president called for calm in Guinea as elections are scheduled. Speaking in turn, General Mamadi Doumbouya expressed his satisfaction with the quality of the discussions. He reaffirmed his ambition to build a strong and lasting relationship with Côte d'Ivoire.
I hope that our partnerships can also strengthen our joint efforts to build an ambitious, harmonious and prosperous future for our two nations. By coming to Abidjan, I wish to express my conviction that it is time to elevate this relationship to a new level.
It should be noted that overall, trade between the two countries has grown significantly, recording a 78% increase over the past year.
Sankli Janko filed that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of a top story. Opposition New Patriotic Party in Ghana to elect 2028 flag bearer on January 31, 2026. Human Rights Organization calls for dialogue to end ongoing strike in Guinea-Bissau. Nigeria's Affairs Chief Community Self-Protection Initiative to end Benue State crisis faces criticism. And still ahead, Mani River Union member countries converge on Monrovia over border and maritime security. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and follow live streams on YouTube and Facebook. Here in Senegal, the Second African Conference on Democracy organized by the Foundation for Innovation for Democracy is underway. Hundreds of policy analysts, governance experts and civil society representatives are attending the forum to deliberate on the challenges and opportunities for democracy across the African continent. This year's theme, Substantive Democracy, Sovereignty and Human Security, encourages various governments to rethink democracy in a broader context, emphasizing the importance of ensuring dignified and sustainable living conditions, which are essential for fostering inclusive social and political justice. Augustine Kuli was there and filed in this report.
The African Conference on Democracy aims to build a new momentum and strengthen solidarity among democracy advocates across the continent, amplifying the voices of young people and women in decision-making cycles and promoting their intellectual contribution was also emphasized. During the opening ceremony, Professor Achille Mbembe, the chief organizer and executive director of the Foundation for Innovation for Democracy, urged a rethink of democracy in Africa beyond the traditional framework.
There will be no sovereignty without security, without access to subsistence, and without the creation of material conditions of freedom. This will not be possible under the exclusive auspices of the free market. We must, of course, free the productive forces, but in a way that does not tend to war against nature or the living.
Delegates at the conference will discuss various interconnected issues, managing rural and cross-border territories, safeguarding freedom of speech, protecting fundamental rights, and rebuilding institutions based on heritage values. Faisal Ismail, a professor at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, provides insights into democratic governance in Africa.
Democracy is in crisis in Africa, yes. It is also in crisis in Europe and the United States. So we have a global challenge to rethink, to redefine what we mean by democracy. And what we're seeing is not just a dissatisfaction with democratic institutions, but a dissatisfaction with the economic development models which are creating inequality.
The African Conference on Democracy, which began on Tuesday, June 17, wraps up on Friday, June 20, with actionable resolutions aimed at addressing the challenges of ensuring democracy across the continent.
Augustine Kuli filed a report. Staying in Senegal, the World Bank has approved $100 million in concessional financing to support the transformation of urban mobility in Dakar. In a statement on Wednesday, the bank noted that the Sustainable Urban Mobility Project aims to integrate key transport systems like the Bus Rapid Transport (BRT) and Regional Express Rail (TAR) with restructured bus networks, while professionalizing informal transport operations and improving traffic management. The initiative also supports planning for a second BRT line and mobility infrastructure in secondary cities. The bank emphasizes climate resilience, low-emission buses, and public-private partnerships aligning with Senegal's Vision 2050 and green growth goals. The project is expected to improve mobility for 3.8 million people, reduce travel times, create formal jobs, and boost connectivity between Dakar and regional hubs. We cross over to the Liberian capital of Monrovia as talks are on the way towards the formation of a joint technical commission on land and maritime boundaries by member countries of the Mani River Union. This gathering, supported by the German government through GIZ, brought together dignitaries including officials from the MRU countries and representatives from regional organizations. During the 4-day consultations, delegates from Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone and Cote d'Ivoire will explore solutions for addressing land boundary issues and maritime securities. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker report.
The conference opened with remarks from representatives and key government officials present. Among them, Liberia's Internal Affairs Minister Francis Yomali. He stressed that a united approach is crucial for the advancement of the sub-region, highlighting the necessity of maintaining peace among neighboring countries.
We trust that the outcome of this meeting will be both collectively and country-focused implemented to benefit our people.
Also speaking, Francis Kelly, head of the Sierra Leonean delegation, pledged his country's endorsement of the discussions, particularly given its bold challenges.
Our development aspirations, MRU member states, are intertwined and are interwoven. Our communities travel along our common borders. Hence, our mantra should be cooperation, coexistence, strengthening of cross-cultural ties, and socio-economic complementarity.
According to Liberia's Foreign Minister Sarah Beslo Yanti, the Bouaka-led administration is firm on fostering diplomatic relations and resolving border conflicts.
Liberia stands ready and committed to working closely with the African Union, our Mani River Union counterparts, and as you know, Liberia has played a critical role over the last year and a half in revitalizing and strengthening the Mani River Union.
The ongoing conference embodies the hopes of the 4 nations to collaboratively tackle land and maritime boundary concerns, paving the way for a more stable and cooperative regional future. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, let's remain in Monrovia as we join Abraham Parker for the newspaper review.
Our first stop is the Women Voices newspaper. With this first story, China sees ahead of Liberia at United Nations Security Council warns of manipulation on one China policy. Liberia National Police no-go zoom asleep as commercial motorcyclists return to Central Monrovia. Our next stop is the New Republic newspaper. Bouaka deserves no credit for suspending LTA boss, Center Director Anasi Miami sides. Eyeing the robbers storm Dupont Road community, gunshots fired near Baptist Church. Cabinet Director outlines new era of accountability. Up next is the front page Africa newspaper. Attempting to bribe witness, family accuses police of coercing John Yanti to testify as state witness in capital fire case. Police yet to respond. 7,000 Liberian jobs stolen. Our next and last stop is the Liberian Investigator, Volume 1, number 069. 7,000 Liberian jobs stolen. The Civil Service Agency has revealed that thousands of jobs legally reserved for Liberians were unlawfully given to foreign nationals in 2024, exposing a major breach of the nation's labor laws. US 50,000 bribed to lie on Kofa. Suspect alleges inducement to incriminate the former speaker, SARS threats and illegal detention. Well, that does it for this Wednesday's edition of Press Review. For Liberia's capital, Monrovia, is back to you in studio.
Many thanks, Abraham Parker.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest,
Well, this segment will take you back to Nigeria's Benue State ahead of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's visit. Earlier, the country's Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, had proposed a community-based security approach to tackle the escalating crisis in the state. CDS Musa, in his proposal, suggested that trusted local youth be trained as vigilantes under the supervision of the military to help secure their communities. However, the proposal has drawn mixed reaction as not everyone agrees with the idea. Some stakeholders fear it could lead to misuse of power or escalate existing tensions. Speaking during a stakeholders meeting, Ata Jesse Ata Oloto is a security and intelligence specialist, and he is our guest. So what do you think about the CDS call for Benue residents to defend themselves?
I think his statement seems a bit too hasty, especially given the current delicate security climate, as it were, in Benue. Irrespective of how possibly well-intentioned his statement is, it risks alienating certain groups, considering the ethno-religious and identity-based dimension of the current security dynamics across the various groups in question. It's very important to understand that the context in which civilians were conscripted into a civilian joint task force or a militia that was to support federal law enforcement agencies in dealing with ideological terrorist groups linked to JAS and ISWAP. The dynamics in Benue State is very, very much different, and it doesn't really take into cognizance the complex dynamics at play in Benue. What we would have appreciated seeing is a more collective statement from the National Security Council, which is the instituted body in government for collective brainstorming and harmonizing of strategies in dealing with security concerns in the country, rather than a ad hoc statement such as what has been released by the Chief of Defense Staff.
What measure would you say should be in place to end killings in Benue State and other parts of the country?
I think we need a whole of government-led approach in dealing with the situation as it is. There's need for a shift from reactive military deployment to more of a governance-led, people-centered, intelligence-driven form of deployment to really inform how government intervenes in the situation as it were. Some key dynamics that have really been seen to be either lacking or disjointed kind of includes the whole concern around early warning and early response systems, right? There is need for more robust early warning and early response system. And when we talk about just early warning systems, we need more initiatives, more localized initiatives to really support people to identify some of the key triggers of violence before they turn into reprisals and continue to evolve into uncontrollable dimensions.
Ata Jesse Ata Oloto is a security and intelligence specialist. And in sport news, Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa gave Africa its first victory at the 2025 Club World Cup with a 1-0 victory over Ulsan Hyundai of South Korea on Tuesday. The match between the Mamelodi Sundowns and Ulsan Hyundai, delayed by an hour due to a thunderstorm, saw Ikram Reyes score the only goal in the 36th minute after two VAR interventions for disallowed goals. The other African clubs competing in the 2025 Club World Cup have had mixed fortunes. Al-Ahly of Egypt opened with a draw, while Esperance de Tunis lost to Flamengo of Brazil. Wydad Casablanca Morocco has yet to make its debut in the competition. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Farilu Sow and Umudanyogo for the technical support. Do connect with us on all of our social media platforms, X, from Twitter, Instagram, at WADR News. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you